Good morning and welcome to Ion History. My name is Charlotte Warner and we are very lucky to have a special guest with us today in the studio. Good morning. Can you please tell me about yourself, Mr. Galileo?
My name is Galileo Galilei, and I was born in Pisa, Italy, February 15th, 1564. My father and mother were from noble families, but they were not rich. My father, Vincenzo, was a lutist. A lutist is a person who plays a lute, and a lute is an instrument that looks a lot like a guitar. My father also put music theory, and he caused a lot of controversy because he argued with the rules. And he thought that if we always followed the same rules, we would never move on.
What was Italy like then?
It had just passed the Middle Ages, and it was the Renaissance. The Middle Ages were a time of darkness and no learning, but it was the Renaissance when I was growing up. The Renaissance was a time of blooming and learning. My father, Vincenzo, was arguing with the rules of the Middle Ages.
What were you like as a child?
I was a little intelligent boy, and I built gadgets and little things. And when I couldn't find the right piece I needed, I found another piece to take its place. And my father taught me how to play the lute, and it was a lifelong passion for me. And I also learned how to do art, and I learned how to draw in a three-dimensional.
Did your family stay in Pisa?
No. My father, our family moved to Florence because my father had to play in court for the Duke. And Florence was a wonderful place for learning because it was the center of learning and arts and math and stuff like that.
Did you go to school?
Yes. I first had a private teacher, and he showed me the Pythagorean theorem, or magic numbers. He showed me it by using rocks on the floor. And then I went to the Catholic monks and at the monastery, and they taught me logic. They also taught me Greek. They also taught me Latin. My father, I wanted to be a monk when I grew up, but my father didn't want me to be a monk because he thought one day I would have to support the family and monks get no pay. And so he pulled me out of the monastery.
Then did you go to the university?
Yes, my father had just enough money to go to the university. Only rich people went to the university at that time. And my father had barely enough money, and then one day I questioned a teacher and said, "Why do you believe Aristotle's laws of gravity?" And they said, because he wrote it down, and I was really mad, and I wanted to actually prove it. And then one day, I saw a cathedral, and I saw a lamp swinging on a chain. I saw every time it went back and forth, it got shorter and shorter. The span got shorter and shorter, but the time never got shorter or longer. And I studied that. I went back home and studied that for a long time and made experiments, and I finally discovered the law of the pendulum. When I went back to summer break, my father had heard about the news of the law of the pendulum, and he finally let me study math. And I studied math for a little while, and later I went back out.
Did you make discoveries at university?
Yes, one of them, the first one, was that I went up to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I dropped a rock in a lighter object. And I proved that Aristotle was wrong, and that everything falls at the same amount of time, even if something has more mass or less mass. And that's one of the things I did. The second thing I did was one of the famous rich people in Italy came up to me and said, asked me if their invention will work, and I said no, and they tested it out, and it didn't work, and they got me fired from the university.
What did you do after you left the university?
I studied and taught kids, and after I left the university, I had a chair of mathematics in Padua, and I was the favorite teacher there. And I also made the horse-powered pump and the thermoscope, which is a little like a thermometer.
Did you have a family?
Yes. I had three children. One of them was a boy, two of them were girls. And I didn't actually have a wife. I had a mistress. Her name was Mistress Marina. And I didn't marry her, I just lived with her.
I heard you invented the telescope. Is this true?
No, I did not actually invent the telescope. It was originally invented in Holland. And I heard about the great invention, and I wanted to get my hands on it. When I did, it was not polished, and they used two concave lenses. Two concaves. This is a concave. And I polished the two and added one concave and one convex. And then I polished the two, and it magnified 9 times. Then later I made it even more till it was 30 times. So I sold it to the Duke for Navy reasons, and then what I really wanted to do with it was turn it up to the stars. The first thing I saw with the telescope was that the moon was not circular. It was a sphere, and it was not perfect. It had mountains and craters.
What else did you see in the sky?
One of the other things I saw in the sky was that Saturn had moons, and people and I noticed they weren't actually moons, they were rings. And I also noticed there were 5 stars that were also in the universe, and I noticed they were moving, and I thought, how could they move if they were fixed? And I noticed that they were not stars, they were planets. And I noticed that we aren't the only one who has planets near us. And one of the other ones I saw was that I looked at Venus, and I saw that Venus and other planets had phases, so I knew that the sun would have to be the center of the universe. universe, and I also noticed that when I looked up at the sun, since I would have gotten blinded if I didn't use something, I used a green lens so I could actually see the sun, and I saw it, and I saw little like dots and stuff. And people also said they saw it first, but the people who actually saw said the ones who actually wrote about it said that uh, were they were shadows from the planets. But I looked closer and I saw they weren't actually they weren't spheres or circles. They were actually like curved, and they moved irregularly, so they couldn't be planets because planets move regularly. All of that led to that the sun was the sun was the middle of the universe, and we were not the center of the universe. I made a book about it, about the sunspots, but people were really mad because they wanted to think that the sun was perfect and it wouldn't have any black spots and stuff like that.
Were you involved in other controversies?
Sunspots were a small controversy, but one of the biggest controversies I was in was heliocentrism and geocentrism. And heliocentrism means the sun is the middle of the universe, and geocentrism means the Earth was the center of the universe. That was a pretty big argument because back in that day, people thought that the Earth was perfect and nothing else could have like moons and stars, but I had a lot of proof that because all the other experiments I made led to one thing, that the sun was the middle of the universe.
What did the Pope think?
The Pope first used Copernicus's work in his calendar, and he originally liked my things, and another Pope asked me to actually write a book about geocentrism and heliocentrism, and he said, please please give the book my words and don't take sides in the book. And I made it a dialogue, and dialogue is a conversation. And there was one character named Simplicio, and that means simpleton, and he obviously believed in geocentrism, and he got all the Pope's words. And I lost all my protection.
Oh my goodness, this must have caused a lot of trouble for you.
Yes, it did. I had to go to court, and I had to confess that I didn't actually believe it. I didn't believe in heliocentrism, and they still called me a heretic. They didn't believe me, but they made me say that the Earth was the center of the universe, and some people think that when I said that, I whispered after I say the sun is not the middle of the universe. I said "e può si muove," and that means and yet it moves. And people make paintings about me that say, and with hidden pictures that say, and yet it moves. And everybody believed that.
What happened after the church punished you?
I went to house arrest, and I wrote a book that that summed up all the work I did 40 years ago and up.
You made so many discoveries, but what do you think is your greatest achievement?
Separating science from religion and philosophy. And I think that was one of my greatest things I did in my life.
Thank you.